Hi, thanks for joining us today. I'm Dave Kessler with Kessler & Sons Music, and I wanted to take some time today and talk to you about intermediate oboes. So to help me out, we brought one of our friends of the store, Danny McCracken. Say hi, Danny.
Hi.
Danny's a wonderful oboe player here in town. She's a teacher. She has a lot of private students, and so she's going to help talk about things from a teacher's perspective and give us a little bit of extra feedback. So with your students and their parents, is there anything that you commonly find that they have questions about, or anything that you think they should look for in a new oboe?
I think that they should be looking for a low B flat key, and they should be looking for a left-hand F key, because that's going to get them to be able to run the full practical range of the instrument. I think that a lot of the beginners, the models that they play from maybe a school-owned instrument, don't go down as far. They only go down to a low B. They don't necessarily give extra options on some of the technical pieces that they have to be able to play. So that left-hand F is really handy for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Those are two of the most common when I talk to parents and talk to players over the phone or in the store. Those are kind of the two that I always say, don't buy an oboe without it if you're going to invest this much money in the purchase of an oboe.
For sure.
So we're going to spend some time here, and we're going to go over some of the common features on oboes, like we talked about already, the left-hand F and low B flat. We're going to show you what those are, but we're also going to talk about some of the other features so that you, parents, players, students, can learn more about what you're looking at, so you can make that decision. So the left-hand F key. That's one we both said that is one of our ones that's a must-have.
Yes, I agree.
That's one that when I have students coming in here that aren't using it, they all do the fork F.
And I think a lot of times it's because of, and I'm not blaming a method book, because I think the method books that are used in high school or middle school band classes are great. But what happens most of the time is this F, the forked F, is what's shown as the initial introduction to F. And what's interesting is, depending on what book you use, the fingering for F is 1, 2, 3, 1 and 3, and then the E flat key. But when I learned it, it didn't use the E flat key back in the day. So the reason why the E flat key is used is because it helps bring the pitch up, because F is such a flat note when you play it this way. So what happens is later on in the books, then you'll see what they call, some of the books actually call it alternate F. And I have to show the kids right away. I'm like, no. That's actually regular F. It's the real F, which is the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then this sliver key. And that one's the true F. And what I love about it is, I explained to the kids, the only time you should be using forked F from this point forward, if they don't have the left-hand F, is if they're dealing with Ds or E flats before it or after it. C sharp's involved as well, but because this one's going to be better in tune. Now the left-hand F, what makes this one so great, if you check out the mechanism, is if we go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, like you're going to play an E, and instead of putting this finger down, check it out, there's your left-hand F doing the work, and it's right there, and it engages that sliver key into action, so it doesn't change the pitch because it's engaging the exact same keys. But what I love about the left-hand F key is that the minute that a kid gets to have that key, there's a learning curve that maybe is uncomfortable for a couple of weeks, because they have to get their pencil out and put L's above all the places to do it, but then all of a sudden they can play it, and then they like it better, and they'll eventually say, yes, you're right. And so when you're playing in like the keys of A flat or D flat or G flat, you're probably going to use the forked F more just because of where it would lay in the phrase, but by and large, the left-hand F is going to save you a whole lot of hassle and make your sound, make intonation much easier for you. So
gives you a much better solution than the forked F,
for sure,
in tone and pitch.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why it's on our must-have.
Yes.
So one of the key mechanisms that I get asked about quite a bit is one that's relatively newer to oboes as a whole, is called the third octave key. So do you want to take a moment here to show us what the different octave keys are?
Sure. So here we are. You've got on the back, you've got this, which is what the standard octave key would be. This is what the third octave key would be. And then over here is what I always call the side octave key. And so what happens is when you're playing and going up the scale and you get to an E, you would actually use this octave key down here. And then as you go on up, what would happen is as soon as you get to the A, you would add this key here. In terms of the third octave, that would be used when you're going anything above from E super high E on up. So that would be like your E6 if you were talking about musical terminology. So, and it's not necessary. Not all oboes have it. My oboe didn't have it because my oboe's over 25 years old. So it's something that's been relatively new within the last 20 years. Right. And I think it's really great. Yeah.
But even the third octave, it is, like you said, not necessary. Your oboe, which is about 25 years old, doesn't have it. Now, hers is no intermediate oboe. You have a Lorraine. It is the top end of oboes. And it doesn't have it. So it is by no means a necessity, but if it's there, cool.
If it's there, use it. If it's not, you don't really need it. Yeah.
So in short, don't fret about it.
Yeah.
It's there, it's cool, but not necessary.
Not a deal breaker.
Right. So with the low B flat, there's also a variant on it called the vent. Low B flat, as we both talked about, that's a key we absolutely have to have.
Right.
Don't buy an oboe without it. But there's also a version where it's got the vent, which is this extra key right here on the bell. You don't have to do anything different. It's just an extra hole so that when you hit B flat, it closes the B flat and opens the vent. And that's just there for pitch stability and resonance. Makes it come out a little bit easier, right?
Yeah.
Nothing fancy. It's not a deal breaker, just like we were talking about the third octave, but nice to have.
Right.
So the articulated C sharp. This is one that is a little bit more complex. It doesn't necessarily, again, doesn't add a new feature that you can't play a note or anything of that nature. But that one adds a lot of extra key work right down here on the C sharp. Right?
I think it's great because if you look at it, what you're able to do is be able to go from low B to C sharp without having to switch. So in your standard fingering for low B, it's this. It's 1, 2, 3, and this middle key here, which is your low B key. Then you've got 1, 2, 3 in the right hand, and then your C key. But if I'm having to, let's say, play a B scale, I'm going from B to C sharp. And this feature here is kind of tricky to do. But if I have that key, then I'm able to put the C sharp down, use the low B key and go right into C sharp, and everything's great because it's not going to change the sound of the B. So I think it's a great feature to have. My oboe's got it, and it was one of the things that I loved learning that it could do. And then that made this whole hand motion a lot nicer. So there you go. I like that one.
Yeah, and that's why it's called an articulated C sharp. It adds an extra mechanism so that when you go to play B or B flat, it articulates down the C sharp key, even if your pinky over here is holding the key open. So it's like you're holding the C. Really nice feature to have. Not a must-have, but that ranks kind of high on the really nice
I like
to have.
it. Yeah. That's the if you can get it, great.
So next we have the banana key. And that's this little sliver right here on your oboe. Looks like a banana, hence the name. And can you tell us what that's for?
That one's so you can go between C and C sharp at the low end. So you're able to reach over here and do that, but you've got to make sure that your finger is big enough and strong enough to be able to cover the hole and hit that key down at the same time so that you can do the wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. So that's what that key is done there for. So
well, that sounds like a nice thing to have, but in all your years of playing, is it something that you'd say, oh, gotta have?
You know, I can't think of the last time I had to do a C to C sharp trill. I really can't remember. So it's probably not one of those deal breakers either. It's a lot of the mechanisms. I mean, just the more expensive the instrument is, there's usually a lot more metal involved. And so it's one of those where if you have it, then it'll do the trill. And so you're not having to go back and forth like this, because that's, number one, it's not going to come out very cleanly in any sense of the word. And so it's great as far as that's concerned. But as far as comfort on the hand, I don't know that it would be super comfy for the player, especially if they've got smaller hands. So not a have to have, but it's, you know, it's cute. It's nice. A banana. It's cute.
So another feature that's not very common on intermediate oboes, but definitely there in professional oboes, is metal sockets. Now, this is not a performance feature. This is a durability. This is a just reliability feature. And what it has to do with is our sockets, our receiving sockets, and the tenons from the middle of the instrument and from the other end. So one of these oboes has a metal socket. One of them doesn't. Do you know which one you have?
No.
I do. So we're going to show you. We're going to separate here at the middle joint.
Oh. Mine has the metal sockets.
Yes, because you have a professional oboe. So why don't you
nice.
show the socket of this one.
Okay, so you've got this
So you'll
here.
notice this oboe, it's still wood interior, and the tenon is wood. Where on this one, we've got a metal socket, and if you show the tenon upwards like that, you'll see it's a metal tenon here. So the idea is that that's going to provide a more stable fit. You don't have to worry about wood expansion, wood shrinking. You also don't have to worry about technicians that when they replace one of these joint corks, they sand down the wood on your tenon, which can lead to a wobbly tenon. It's just there for stability, and it adds expense to it, and this is why a lot of intermediate oboes don't have it.
Yeah.
But it's just that reliability feature. All right, so here we've got a standard student oboe. Nothing fancy. This is a good student plastic Yamaha, traditional student model. This is out of our rental fleet, and this is a common example of what you'll find in most middle school and some high schools as their school-owned instruments.
Well, it's plastic for one, right?
Yep.
Okay, so it's and that's fine. It's got no low B flat key that we've talked about quite a bit.
Right.
It does not have the left-hand F, but sound-wise, it comes off pretty okay. So I'll play a little bit here for you so you've got an idea. So no, it doesn't go down to the B flat, but and so on. So that's it gets the job done. It's got the octave keys and all that good stuff, but it would be a good starter instrument, not necessarily one that you'd be looking for an intermediate type of purchase.
So next we've got a Buffet 4052 intermediate oboe. These are actually now discontinued. They discontinued them just a few years ago and replaced them with the Prodige. But this oboe has a couple of really nice features to it. It has, like we talked about, the low B flat with the vent. It has the left-hand F. It has the articulated C sharp mechanism, and it also has the third octave key. The other thing that it has that we don't see on the external is the entire inside of the upper joint and the lower joint is lined with a synthetic material to prevent cracking. Now, it doesn't mean that it can't crack. It just means that it can't crack all the way from the top into the bore, because we have seen them crack when really abused on the surface level through tone holes and things of that nature, because it can still crack to the wood. But for all intents and purposes, it gives an instrument that's more reliable and just easier maintenance, a little bit more durable. So it's been a very common and popular instrument purchased by schools.
I like it.
They're good oboe. These were actually made in Germany by a company called Schreiber that Buffet now owns. But we've dealt with this in the past under the Schreiber label and under the Buffet label. They're a good oboe, which is why we have this one actually in our rental fleet. We own a couple of these that we rent out, shockingly.
Right.
But, very good, solid oboe. The new model, the Buffet Prodige, is an upgraded version of this as far as just tone and overall pitch and performance, but this is a really good, solid, reliable oboe, and you can find these sometimes for really good values used online.
Right. Well, and I like the synthetic idea.
Yeah, and the synthetic inner and the wood exterior gives you the mass of the wood without the durability concerns.
Right, I like that.
So here we have one of our Kessler custom composite oboes. This is something where we deal direct with a factory to have an oboe made to our spec, and we eliminate the various middlemen and distributor costs that are commonly associated with instruments. So this is something that, while a very good instrument, I might be a little bit biased. My name's Kessler, the oboe says Kessler, and they're only available at Kessler & Sons. But this instrument it's at student price point. It's commonly where you'll find the basic student oboes, plastic oboes, but this is a full conservatory key system. It has every option that we've discussed here. Plus, it's also fully synthetic oboe. This is not plastic. It is a composite material, where it's a combination of wood grain and nylon to give you a little bit more weight than plastic.
Yeah, it's a little bit heavier for sure.
No concern over cracking, because this will not crack.
This one comes out well. And here's something that I just noticed is it's got an adjustable thumb rest key back here, which I think is also great because not everybody's hands
in the exact same
do
form.
the exact same form, which is a kind of a cool extra thing you've got back here.
You can add adjustable thumb rests onto other oboes, but it's nice when it's already there.
Yeah.
So this one is our Kessler Custom Hybrid. This is the other oboe in our line. Same fundamental design as the composite model. And the upper joint is still the composite material. So the upper joint of this, our hybrid, and the composite is the same part. The difference, though, is in the lower joint and the bell. On this one, the lower joint and the bell are made out of wood. So you get the extra weight. You get the richer tone of the wood instrument. But you still don't have to worry about the cracking in the upper joint, which is where 95+% of cracks happen in oboes. And so this one you don't have to worry about. You still have to maintain it more like a wood oboe because of the lower joint being that. This one also has the added on metal lined sockets like we talked about earlier. But otherwise, it's fundamentally the exact same design, just heavier. And
I got to tell you, just the weight of it, I really like it because it's very similar to what my horn feels like when I play it. So we'll test this one out.
So this is the Yamaha 441M. The M indicates that this is what they call the Duet Plus model. What's unique about this one is the interior of the upper joint. Yamaha makes this in 3 different configurations. They make it in the 441, which is all wood. They also make an ABS version of 441A, where it's no wood, it's all ABS plastic, but same design. The idea of durability. But this one is the 441M. What they're doing uniquely in this one is only in the upper joint. So with the upper joint, when they go to manufacture this, they actually over-ream the interior of the instrument, so the bore is larger, and they cut all the tone holes bigger. They then injection mold plastic into the entire interior. So this tenon right here, you can't see from this distance, but I'll show you in another clip of this, that this tenon is actually plastic. That entire tenon there is machined plastic. And the entire interior bore, the tone holes, are one solid piece of plastic. The idea is, like what we talked about on the buffet, it has that liner to prevent cracking, but there's no exposure of your moisture inside the instrument to the wood interior of the bore or the tone holes. So much so that Yamaha gives a 10-year crack warranty on it. And so especially in school scenarios, if a school is purchasing a better line oboe from Yamaha, this one gives a great performance and gives much better durability than the traditional wood oboe in that same scenario.
Don't you think, too, if you've got massive climate change, it would be a really good choice?
Well, because as we've talked about in other instruments, 95% of cracking happens in the upper joint of the instrument. So if we can do anything to eliminate it or greatly decrease the chance, all the better. And this one virtually has eliminated that risk. So much so, as I said, they'll give a 10-year warranty on it because they know they're not going to have to use it.
Well, now we're going to try this one.
So a real solid performer, great sound, easy play, you know, really good intermediate oboe.
I was in just looking at it, it's a smaller octave key, but it works just fine. That was the first thought I had was, uh-oh, Ghostwriter. It's a little bit small. But the other thing, too, when you're looking at octave keys, your thumb's not going to be going all the way on it anyway. You're just looking to be able to bump it, almost like what a bridge key does on a clarinet, just a little bit of a bump. So, yeah, it works fine. And it doesn't have the split D, but it's high enough. So if you've got somebody with smaller hands, that might be something to look at too.
Yeah, that is something else that they do, is they really design this to be adaptable regardless of the age or size of the player, where an adult can feel comfortable on it, but it is just enough tweaked where the student is not going to have any problem with it either. So, you know, another really good offering from them, and this is why we, here in our shop, we only stock the Duet models, because it's all about that durability, and now we can give somebody an instrument that is going to not devalue itself with a crack.
Got it.
So. So here we have the Howarth S40C. Now, Howarth is a name that a lot of customers are not necessarily familiar with because they're not something you find in a lot of shops because they only make double reed instruments. They're a specialty shop based in England, and they make some phenomenal instruments, but they don't make clarinets and flutes and piccolos, and they don't have that full line. And so it requires that the dealer who is buying the oboes knows to contact Howarth. And, you know, it's a shame, but it really takes a lot of specialty shops to really find these type of things. And this is something that we have fallen in love with. So the Howarth S40C, this is their main intermediate model. It's pretty much got almost every key option that we've discussed except for the D, for the split D key. But it has every other option that we've discussed. And this one's also available in 3 different bore concepts. It is either all wood, wood with the plastic upper joint, so that hybrid concept, or what Howarth does is very unique. They have something called their velvet throat. It is a liner on the inside that goes from the top of the bore to about the center of the upper joint. And the entire bore is cut after that liner is installed, and so you can't see it. But again, it's protecting the wood in the most sensitive area where most cracks happen. Well, as we've said, 95% of cracks happen in the upper joint, and the heavy majority of those are in the upper half of the upper joint. So Howarth has really eliminated that with the velvet throat. And so in our shop, we only stock them with that option. But this is one of my personal favorite oboes and a great value.
I like just the hand position on it. It's nice. I like that.
Just a really nice playing oboe.
Yeah.
And these are probably one of our top recommendations from teachers to their kids once the teacher actually has a chance to play them. And just a really well-built instrument from a small niche shop. And generally, if you're going to go to a custom maker, you're going to pay a lot more money. So this keeps it in a really competitive price range, feature-wise, and something that we really, really like. So that's the Howarth S40C. So here we have the Howarth S50C. Now this one is not an intermediate oboe. I brought this one in because this is one of the more affordable pro-level oboes, and this is something that we carry in our shop. So the S50C is their first professional model in the Howarth line. It has every feature we've discussed. Has the split D, unlike the S40C does. And it is a modified version of their professional XL series bore, which is their high-end upper echelon oboes. But this comes in a little bit more than what some intermediate oboes come in at, but not so much more that it's not justifiable if you really, really are looking for a better level instrument. This has every key option. It also has the metal sockets that we talked about earlier. It was one of the ones that we showed you in the metal sockets. But this one also, same thing. You can get in all wood, you can get the composite upper top, or you can get the velvet throat, the liner in the upper half of this, just like in the S40C. So this one is also is done with that velvet throat option, just like the S40C is.
Weight-wise, again, it's that high, it's that heavier feel to it, which I like.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Well, and this is, as I said, this is a more affordable professional level oboe, gets you every option. And that, you know, the other thing that I really like about this is we talked about the liner option that they have installed in here is I really don't feel it impacts the performance of the instrument in any way, shape, or form. It just gives you the added durability. And I generally feel that about most of the liner concepts is that they still are heavy enough, the material they use is heavy enough that it more emulates wood, but since you're still dealing largely with the upper joint being wood, you still get the same tone of that instrument.
Right, yeah. So the tone's not really getting changed. You're not hearing a big difference between the two.
Right. So here we have your own personal oboe, a Larray that you've had for about 25 years.
Yep, it's older than dirt.
I don't know if everybody would consider 25 years older than
No,
dirt.
it's like twice as old as any of my little 6th graders, you know, and older than some people that, you know, are teachers now. You know?
That's true.
So,
there you go.
all those things. But yeah, I've had this.
The Larray is kind of the standard amongst oboe players. This is what everybody judges as a professional oboe is Larray.
Right.
So it's nice to be able to compare this and just hear how much of a
Sound-wise,
difference it is.
So here we go.
So there you go, your
That's
standard
my horn.
true professional instrument
Yep.
that you're used to and been playing on for
forever.
for as old as dirt.
That's right.
Okay, so next we want to talk about oboe maintenance. If you're looking at this video, you're probably looking at good oboes and you're putting a good amount of money into it, and so the worst thing you can do is not maintain it, or rather the worst thing your student can do is not maintain it.
Right.
So I want to take a few moments just to show you a couple of the key things to do when maintaining an oboe. So one of the things that I like to talk about with people is how to properly oil their oboe.
So how often would you recommend that it be oiled?
I look at it and say, if you oil it correctly, you can't oil enough. Okay. Now there's right and wrong ways to oil, and there's ways that are considered right that I don't think are quite as good. And so we'll get into that in another part here. But the big thing is crack prevention with oiling. So we recommend using almond oil.
Okay.
And you can get almond oil in some health food stores. And we apply it with a feather. But oiling your oboe, I recommend generally oiling it in a dry climate once a month.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because we're just so dry. And as you play the instrument regularly and it gets more broken in, you don't necessarily have to do it quite that rigorously. But some woods are also more susceptible to cracking. So like cocobolo and rosewood and these other type of exotic woods that do have both a aesthetic beauty, but also a different tonality and performance to them, can be more susceptible to cracking. And so on those, I generally look at it and say your upper joint once a week.
Okay.
As long as you're not over applying the oil. And that's where the turkey feather really does best, in my opinion, is that it's only going to give a very light coat to the surface level of the bore rather than a deep soak. And so it won't get up into pads. It won't make sticky pad problems.
Right.
And that's why most oboe shops will tell you turkey feather is the way to do it. Some clarinet shops will go with a pull-through swab. But on an oboe, the bore is so tight that as that swab is pulling through, it can over squeeze oil into the tone holes and get on the surface of your pads, and also runs the risk of getting stuck if you don't pull it through properly. So turkey feathers are generally safe. So we're going to show you that here in just a moment. So with a brand new turkey feather, you're going to need to apply a little bit more oil than you normally would. So this one's a brand new feather. We're going to apply the oil a lot just down the center of the quill on both sides, because we got to get this thing nice and saturated with oil for it to be able to apply. Once you do that initial coating, we're going to run the oil through, and you'll see that turkey feather gets really ugly really quick. But that's okay. Okay, the idea is getting it saturated. When you've used this feather a couple of times, you only need to do a few drops down each side. I usually stay about 4 on each side. That way it's going up and down the entire quill, and you'll just work it through with your fingers to get it nice and in. And since it's almond oil, it'll just go straight in your skin. Nothing wrong with almond oil, unless you're allergic to almonds, in which case, find a different type of oil. So now that you've got your turkey feather nice and oiled up, it's very simple. Just put it straight in and rotate. Now, I generally recommend rotating in one direction the entire time. Don't try and go back and forth.
Okay.
And you're just trying to get it a nice coat through. When you're done, there's going to be a little bit of excess oil right here at the tenon. If you have a metal tenon, it's not a big deal. You can wipe it off on your hand. If you have a wood tenon, you just rub it in.
Okay.
And so doing that, that will just give you a nice surface layer of the oil on your bore. It's not going to soak deep. This is not penetrating deep. This is just creating a moisture barrier. Now that you're done oiling the bore of your oboe, it's also a good idea to keep the feather clean. So generally we're going to recommend that you keep it in some sort of airtight bag. When we give someone a feather or sell them one, we supply them with this Ziploc style bag to keep the feather free of dirt, dust, and miscellaneous debris. This way the feather lasts you longer, and it's also going to help you use less oil in the long term, and so it's going to hold on to some of the oil that you just used from your last oiling, so you don't have to use as much the next time around. So oiling the bore of your oboe, that's always the best advice I can give to somebody. As I said, if you do it right, you're not going to over apply it, you're not going to ruin anything, but doing it too little or not doing it at all, and you just risk running into things like cracks. So humidification is the other thing that we recommend a lot. Keeping a relative humidity, because again, this wood is used to getting, water in it, and when it was a live piece of wood, it had water going through it, and so it is natural that it wants to absorb and release moisture. It's what we call hygroscopic. Now, when you play, you're putting that 100-degree steam into it, but when you're not, it's drying out, and so that's quite a massive shift. It's kind of like going into the rainforest and then going to Vegas, and then to the rainforest and back to Vegas. And so your oboe is going through quite a bit of shock. And so one of the things that we recommend is proper humidification inside of a case. The easiest way to do that is with a water-based humidifier. We get these from a company called Humistat, and they're just a little reservoir where you can store a decent amount of water, and there's a little guide so you can dial it down. And even if you live in a damp climate, it's good to have a relative baseline humidity inside your case so that as the humidity changes throughout the day, through the season, your instrument isn't going through that same shock.
Right.
The other thing that we see some companies do, and this is a newer one, is these two-way humidification packs. So this is from a company called Boveda, and they sell two-way humidifiers. The idea is that not only will it give you humidity, but if it's over-humidified, it will pull it back in.
This is pretty nifty.
This is. The downside of these is finding a place to fit it inside your case. Because this is kind of big. Now, they make smaller ones, but as a general rule, the bigger ones are more effective. And they've got a lot of different types. Like this one is a 49% relative humidity, and it's what's called a high absorption model. So if you live in a very moist climate, it will have a higher rate of absorbing moisture than it does releasing moisture. So if you're in an area that is 60% relative humidity all the time, this will lower it down to the 49 relatively in that range, but it'll also still bring up humidity when necessary. So there you have it. We've gone through and talked about everything we can think of about oboes. I'm sure we missed a few things, and sorry, but we hope that you got something out of this and that you learned about the various key mechanisms, you learned about materials, everything involving intermediate oboes, and that you please take advice on the maintenance. Take that advice and take it to heart so that you don't have to give us a call for a crack repair, because it's just no fun. But we thank you for taking the time, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on our website at KesslerandSons.com. Myself, I'm Dave Kessler. You can talk to my father, Chuck Kessler. You can talk to my brother, Adam. We would like to take care of you. So if you have any questions, give us a call. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.
Yay.